What's up, guys? It is IRGT85. No, I am not back yet, but I can't stay away. There's stuff I want to talk about. I want to talk about Dying Light on the Nintendo Switch. I want to talk about the new stuff that we learned with the Nintendo Switch Online service. So for the next few days, I'll try to have videos out. They obviously won't have my backdrop. It'll just be voiceover stuff because, well, I broke one of my monitors, which comes into play in just a minute. So if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like and share the video. But without any further ado, also, we're on the road to 400,000 subscribers. Let's hit that by the end of this week. Let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games, and we're going to start things off with Dying Light on the Nintendo Switch. Now, I'm mostly going to show you trailers because of the fact that since I broke that second monitor when I was moving, it's hard for me to capture footage. So I'm actually capturing footage from my main monitor, and so there's a delay when you're doing it because it's not one-to-one when you're using an Elgato external like an HD60. So my gameplay looks terrible as far as a perspective of me actually playing good. But Dying Light was a game I was interested in on the Nintendo Switch, and it's weird because I was a big fan of Dead Island on the Xbox 360, but I never got around to playing Dying Light. So I got a review copy of the game, and I just sort of wanted to share my thoughts with you guys about it, mainly the performance side of things, because I feel like that's what people are going to be most interested in. As far as the game itself is concerned, you're thrown into a large area. There's a big zombie infestation. You're doing different missions. You're running around. You're crafting items. You're leveling your character up. It's pretty standard stuff, but I will say it's very, very fun. It's very addictive, and seeing how everything you do in combat and everything you do when you're jumping around and running around constantly gains you XP, it makes you want to keep playing the game because you want to get more skills via the skill tree. So I do like the gameplay. I think it's absolutely fantastic, but I was definitely interested to see how this game ran on the Nintendo Switch, and I will say, for the most part, it runs pretty good. When it comes to the frame rate side of things, this game, it plays a little bit like Mirror's Edge as far as the parkour is concerned. So that's a game where you have to have a solid frame rate because you don't want things like hiccups when you're jumping from one building to another or something like that. You don't want issues when you're swarmed by a large group of zombies. And I really don't notice anything, at least anything worth talking about as far as the frame rate is concerned. It seems like it's around 30 frames per second, which, I mean, you know, it's fine. It's the Nintendo Switch. You can't expect, 60 frames per second 4K quite yet, unless we get a Switch Pro, because the OLED isn't doing that. But it's definitely very nice in the frame rate department, and it's good because, like I said, you're doing lots of movements, you're doing lots of combat. It's a lot of fast reactions that you have to have in the game. So I will definitely say the frame rate is good. The graphics themselves, I think for the most part, are very solid. I will say it does look better than something like Outer Worlds did on day one by far, and it has that same sort of big open atmosphere that game had. The one thing I did notice was pop-up, and it's definitely more noticeable when you're playing on a docked mode instead of in handheld mode, and it's mostly like foliage, it's from The Simpsons, stuff like that. Some environmental things will sort of pop in and out as you get closer to them or draw farther away. It's a standard thing for the Nintendo Switch. It does seem like there's a certain depth that you can sort of like guesstimate when things will start to texture properly, but it doesn't look bad. It's just something that you have to know that it's not going to look as good as the other versions of the game going into it. Now, it's kind of like The Witcher 3 in handheld mode, where it looks absolutely great because of the fact that it's able to mask more of those things because you have a smaller screen, so you're not noticing things like the pop-up all that much. And that's sort of the main thing. That's why I wanted to show you guys some gameplay that I just play absolutely terrible and get attacked a lot, and yeah, I'm not playing very good, but I sort of wanted to give you guys that impression of the pop-up so you can sort of guesstimate whether or not that would interest you. But if you're fine with that, which I've pretty much for the most part am, this is a great game. I'm having so much fun playing it. I've played it for a couple hours. I'm probably going to play it a lot more today because I'm still waiting on bookshelves and crap to come in, but I definitely recommend Dying Light. If you only own a Nintendo Switch, I think the Nintendo Switch version of the game thus far is great, and it's a lot of fun to play. If you own a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One or a PC or anything like that, you're probably better off getting it on one of those platforms just because of the better graphics and things like that. But if you're only a Switch owner, it's definitely a game worth checking out. And yes, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Nintendo Switch Online service because this is just, it's starting to take on a life of its own because there's a lot of stuff that's attached to it. Now, of course, one of the big stories from yesterday was the fact that, hey, people were upset with the Nintendo Switch's online service trailer on YouTube. It's getting downvoted, blah, blah, blah. And like, I don't really care about things like that. I guess it sort of is worth mentioning though, because it does sort of send a signal. I remember a game like Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, like that trailer got absolutely downvoted straight to hell. So you can sort of give Nintendo an indication of what you think of this service, but I don't really know how far something like that goes. I mean, I have videos with more dislikes than likes on it. You know, some of my reviews, people don't agree with me on that, whatever, no big deal. But it is kind of interesting because obviously a lot of people are very outspoken about this. But one of the things about the expansion pack of the Nintendo Switch's online service was, of course, the inclusion of the Happy Home Paradise DLC that you get for Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now, I don't care about this DLC because I don't own Animal Crossing New Horizons, but obviously it's a very popular game. A lot of you probably have it, and the DLC itself does look very good. But one of the interesting things about the DLC was that it's, like I said, packed in with this Switch Online expansion pack. Now, you can buy it separately for $24.99, or you can just get it via the expansion pack. Now, one of the questions was, what happens to that DLC if you unsubscribe from the service? And Nintendo actually gave a statement to Eurogamer that said the following: players can still continue to access certain things they have unlocked in Animal Crossing New Horizons Happy Home Paradise on their main island, including adding counters, partition walls, as well as adding ambient light and soundscapes, even if their access to Animal Crossing New Horizons Happy Home Paradise is suspended. However, it will not be possible to visit the archipelago if the players lose access to the DLC. To be able to visit the archipelago and take on quests of designing vacation homes again, you will need to purchase the DLC separately or renew your Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack membership. So that's the problem with tying in something to the expansion pack, because you don't really own it. It's just sort of there. It's a part of the expansion pack. But if you cancel your expansion pack, now you're limiting yourself to less things available in the DLC. And I don't like how they said you'll be able to continue to access certain things. Now, it does seem like most of the stuff is going to be there, but are there like certain items that you won't be able to have access to anymore? Like, I feel like they need to be more clear. If it's certain things, you know, is it just the archipelago, or are there going to be specific items and specific textures and specific patterns maybe that you won't be able to access without the DLC? That's the problem. All this is doing is causing a lot of confusion now. So on top of the fact that you have people that are upset with the price point of it, which is very reasonable to be upset with the price point of it, I don't think anyone is necessarily happy about the $50 price tag unless, I don't know, you're just made out of money or something. But I think when you start bundling in things like DLC, that's where it becomes a bit of a slippery slope, because now you're having to account for things in that DLC if you decide to cancel, or just, you know, sort of not want to pay your expansion pack fee and you just decide, okay, well, you know, I'm going to let it lapse or whatever. And of course, you have to remember, I still think there's going to be more DLC packs included in the expansion pack, which for me would be a good thing. For you, it would be a good thing. But if you're a more casual player, it does seem kind of weird because of the fact that, are you going to get that same sort of experience that others will get? And then if you have that experience taken away from you because of the expansion pack membership. Plus, you have to remember one thing: when the Nintendo Switch, when you play the NES and the Super NES games online, you have to check in every 7 days. So what if you're on vacation and you're playing your Happy Home Paradise stuff and you're playing this DLC? What happens if you're on vacation or something and you don't have access to a Wi-Fi signal? Can you still access that DLC? Or is the system going to think, oh, this person canceled their expansion pack? Like, there's a lot of questions that go into this, and I think it's the questions that make this a more difficult pill to swallow, on top of the fact that we have to talk about the price point. Now we're factoring in this, and it's just like, it seems overly complicated. It seems like a good idea in theory to add in DLC into the expansion pack because you're expanding the value, but with just one expansion or one DLC so far in this expansion pack, that's a very game specific thing. That's a very game specific thing in terms of what you can do with it. It's not just like something like additional levels. We're talking whole new game modes, and of course the meticulous items that are in this game. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. You have to remember, Nintendo is probably the most hard-headed company in the world, and as long as it doesn't affect their money, they don't care. The only reason the 3DS got a price drop so early was because of the fact that, yes, it affected their money. But let's be realistic, a lot of people are going to pick up this expansion pack membership and just go about their business and not care. So let me know what you think of everything in the comments section down below. Do you plan on picking up Dying Light for the Nintendo Switch? Have you played it on another platform and own it on another platform, or are you just not interested in the game and this whole expansion pack nonsense? How are you feeling about this? What side of the fence are you on with it? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Like I said, I should be back to a more normal routine, hopefully by midweek. We'll see. Just sort of depends on what's going on. Thank you for watching this video. If you are new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe and share the video as well if you enjoyed it. And if you didn't enjoy it, share it as well. Maybe someone you share it with will enjoy it. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.